You do something at the end of every year, speaking of your pen to paper, and you take this life model, don't you? And you write everything out, you do the 4 quadrants, and you make it real. So, talk a little bit about how that helps you figure out what your next steps are. Because I think when people listen to this, they think, oh, it was so easy. And I think it's anything but. There's
Yeah.
a lot of chaos, a lot of
Well,
chaos happening.
well, I'll go back to vision again, and I'll explain that life model. I think most people know the show kind of goes in all four of those directions, but with vision, I laid out what was called a vivid vision, and I laid out a 3 and a 5 year plan, and on that 3 and 5 year plan was, you know, build the company to this size, videos, a podcast, the very podcast that we're on today is the vision that I had many, many years ago. And sometimes it doesn't come to fruition as you see it, but it sometimes comes way faster. Sometimes it takes a lot longer. But but what I always try to do, and I at the very least do this yearly, I probably do it a multitude of times during the year as well, and have for 20 plus years. And it wasn't as organized as love, impact, faith, and energy. It was like family and friends. Who are the people that matter the most to me? It was my work wealth, which is what I used to call it. And then I realized impact was the word I was aiming for because purpose went well beyond what my day job was. My spirituality was my faith. I had to dial into my faith and get realigned there. And then energy was, how I showed up to the world. It was my body. It was being healthy. It was a healthy mind, body, and spirit. And it moved into life
Mhm.
with this natural flow. And you also, I used to call this my 4 quadrants. I had all these different
We had
words.
all these names.
Yeah,
Yeah.
4 parts. Like they all worked, but they weren't cool, and it wasn't something you'd remember, and we needed to clean it up, and that's where we came up with life, right? It was the who's in our life, the what you do beyond your day job, the why that's bigger than you, and the energy of how you show up to the world. And I would just brain dump. So honestly, it was so simple. It is so simple. I would brain dump all the things that are holding me back, weighing me down, that I'm thinking about, good things, tough things, challenges, relationships. So in the who's, I would actually write down people I want to spend more time with. Maybe it's a cousin I haven't seen in a long time, or doing something with my mom, or a great friend that you think you've seen, and then you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, it's been 6 months. And this is how life goes. But this isn't about being in balance. It's about being imbalanced all the time and then realigning to feel more comfortable with the imbalance. See, if you're going towards something, as well as I do,
Hmm.
you get overwhelmed pretty quickly. So I use this for overwhelm. I use it for goal planning, for dream setting. I use it as a coaching tool when I sit down with people and guide. Nothing's better than talking through it. I mean, we've done this. We've talked about these things forever. And when we started in video, you wanted me to stick to finance.
Yes, I did. I was,
You were adamant.
yeah, I was like, Scott, I think you need to do this. And I was pushing hard, and you pushed right back.
Well, you were right. You were
Ah,
right in one instance where you were right because you knew that that's my niche. That's where I started. I just was past it. Even though I was in it, I was past it. I
mhm.
did not want to talk about something that in my brain I was growing through
Yeah.
and past. It doesn't mean that it's not. I love helping people understand the bigger financial picture. I love talking with my sons about setting themselves up, or your son
Hmm.
about the financial future and what he could do. And these are cool things, but I wanted to talk about life.
Yeah. I think it speaks to your purpose. One is how you want to support people, want to help them. But I think speaking to your purpose is where you were trying to go at that early stage.
Yeah, I think I'm also just sick of shallow conversations. I mean, just to be honest with you, I'm so tired of shallow conversations. I don't give a shit about the weather. I don't care about, the little things. You know what I want to know? I want to know about what you love, who you love, why you love them, how you love them, and how I can learn from that and I can get better at the things that I'm trying to do in my life. I want to have conversations. This weekend, I had a conversation. I went to this dinner in Scottsdale at the Barron's conference, and it was a wealth management conference, and it was a lot of industry people. And I end up at the side of the table where like two guys were like jockey. We had assigned seats, and this one young guy and this older guy were like trying to sit next to each other, and they were inadvertently but aggressively kind of saying that they wanted to move. And I'm so aware of my environment that I'm like, dude, do you just want to sit next to each other? Is that what you're asking? Like, I'll move if
Yeah.
that's what you want. It's no problem. So I pick up my name tag, go to the end of the table. I sit next to four people. I have no idea who I'm sitting with. And we proceed to have this phenomenally deep, quality conversation.
Mm.
And one of the individuals says, after he finds out I have a podcast, he's like, I've always dreamed of doing a podcast. And we started to brainstorm ideas of what he could do his podcast on.
Oh.
And then this other young gentleman who was like 27, 28 was sitting across from me, and he was talking about, young love, and he's in love, and he's going to get married, but he's not engaged. And I was like, what are you waiting for? And he's like, oh, my parents are older, and they think that it's an awful idea to get married young. And then, my girlfriend's only 25, and so like she has life to live. And I was like, I completely disagree with you. I completely disagree, and here's why. And we had this very deep conversation. Guess what we didn't talk about? The weather. We talked about life. And that depth in those conversations are the kind where when you walk out after dinner, that young kid comes up to me and goes, hey, I just wanted to thank you. I want to make sure that I appreciate you standing up for something that's different.
Mm.
And it made me think completely differently than I have to this point.
Yeah.
And I think back at getting married young and starting young,
Mm-hmm.
and
Struggling
you did the same thing,
and struggling young.
and struggling.
Yeah.
And we grew together.
Yeah.
It's so valuable, and I wouldn't replace or change that.
Right.
I was not who I am today, and I had a lot of growing up to do. Thank God my wife and I grew up together.
Right.
But it was definitely worth it.
Yeah.
It was worth it. Looking back almost 24 years later.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's close.
To you and
We're-
Adrian. That's
another
amazing.
month, I guess, month and a half-ish.
Yeah, that is amazing. I want to talk about what you were saying about relationships over transactions, because that is something you are so, so passionate about. But in an industry that is not always known for that, how did you start that? Because you've been in the money business for a very, very, very long time, where again, it is all about, in most cases, just a transaction, taking an order. It's done once you hit send or whatever. How did you make that shift in your brain, and how have you made that a foundation for your company?
I think it's about, it's a great question. I think it's about how you grow up and your authentic way. When I started and I was knocking on doors and cold calling and building my business from the ground up, I remember everybody telling me that doing seminars and events and speaking engagements was stupid and it didn't work. And I listened in the first year or 2 years. And then I said, wait, that's what you're good at, though. Why don't you start doing that stuff? And then my business took off, right? And so the relationship thing was, if you think back to your family and how you grew up, and I grew up where sitting around the dinner table at my grandmother's house was something special. Everybody was in the home. The energy was high. The noise was loud. The food was amazing. Family and authenticity and relationships were what you talked about. We would sit on the beach at Bay Lake Pines in Offshore Drive and at the bay, and my aunts were all like teenagers. and they would just talk about life and all the things that teenagers talk about. Some things I learned pretty early, and other things were really helpful later in life. The bottom line is relationships were what my life was built on, and deeply caring and connecting was something I didn't really have a problem with. And so I think it was all about becoming more of who you actually are at the core and realizing that that's going to get you so much further in anything, in your real life relationships, in your career, just being who you are. And so to me, this turned into relationships over transactions as I got into the business further, M&A and all the things that I did later in my career. But the reality was I was always like that. If I was coaching you or talking to you, I was learning about your family, about everything, and that was fun for me. I mean, have you done that in your life and in your business? What do you do that separates you from other people in your career path that is similar?
You use this word a lot. I use it too. I think it's just curiosity. I am just so curious. I just love to know why people are the way they are. I love to know why they are passionate about certain things. And we've known each other for a really long time, and I was always so curious as to why you didn't want to talk about money when that was what you had done. And as you dig deeper, you realize that it is simply it's just one part of you. And that's why you didn't want to delve into that particular topic, is there was just more to you that you wanted to share with the world. That was it.
Yeah, and what's funny is I think that when we create videos and we create topics of conversation, what has happened over the years is your depth of curiosity,
Mm.
our stage of life,
Yeah.
our admiration for each other's spouses,
Yeah.
like the things that make us friends and our group similar are the very things that make the best conversations and the things that people are talking about. See, I'm always
Yeah.
interested in what's important to you, the listener. Like what are you thinking about right now? I mean, I write down things all the time in my phone. I have a little notes app and I pull up little topics that stand up or stand out to me. And they really are simple things, like I've been remodeling my house, right? And I was thinking the other day about how crazy it is that it's been like 6 or 7 months, and how much easier it is to build something from the ground up the right way than it is to tear apart the inside and to redo it all.
Mm-hmm.
And
Much harder.
right.
Much harder. Yes.
And that's just a home. Think about you as a human.
Yeah.
We all are built a certain way from our foundational roots. And then we spend the rest of our life trying to rebuild from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
We try to build this version of ourselves that's always working towards a little better version. And we have these types of conversations all the time, but the depth of that thought is something that people may or may not have thought about. But if they have thought about it, then they go down a rabbit hole like I do. And for a week, you think about, man, it is so much like every time you break something and you go to rebuild it, you rip up the floors, you realize that there's water damage or something there. And now you have to repair that. So you can't just patch it.
No.
You have to repair it. So internally, we have all these wounds and challenges and beliefs. And a lot of times they need to be repaired. And they need to be opened and restarted and rebuilt. And so it becomes something. And then sometimes there's just natural things that aren't going to change. We had like a natural downward trend in one of the floors, and the builder, excuse me, she's a good friend of mine, and she called me and she's like, I just want you to know. And she's going through all the data and the details. And I said, so what you're telling me is it is an imperfection in the home, but not an imperfection in the home that's going to cause any damage and has never caused damage. And she goes, yeah, absolutely. And I said, then I don't care about it. then it sounds to me like it's always been there.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing, we all have that stuff, right?
We
We all
do.
have those things that are just always there.
Yeah.
And so the relationship part of these deep thoughts is about how do we connect with people on things that they're thinking about that maybe they haven't had the conversation about. Maybe, we've had conversations about things that I think sometimes nobody else is talking about it. One is empty nesting.
Oh, I was just thinking about that. I mean, when your kids left the house for their respective college and sports, I know how hard that was. That was so hard.
And you were going through it at
And
the exact same time.
I was doing the same thing, and soon we're going to just be complete empty nesters.
Right.
Come the fall, and it's going to be so hard.
You can feel it happening, and it's one of those things that is you're extremely joyful to see them grow. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, there's a part of you that's dying off a little bit, where you're like you don't want to hold them back, but they're a part of you.
Oh, 100%. But also then you realize that you have to focus on yourself, because if you don't, then what happens? Then they have nowhere to come back to. That's part of it. You have to keep growing along with them.
I have this weird thought when it comes to this too, that I always want them to come back to a better version of me.
Yes, exactly.
Like I'm always working.
Yes.
You know how they go away and they're working
Yes.
on themselves and they want to come back, and the kids want to show you all that they've learned. I remember being in like first or second semester psychology and coming home and like diagnosing my whole family and having this conversation
they
at
love
Sunday
that.
dinner. No, nobody loved it at all. We had this whole conversation Sunday dinner, but I felt so proud that I was learning something no one else had learned, and I was showing them. I think as a parent, and if any of you are like me, and I know, Cheryl, you are, I think I want to show them the better version and, the better response, the depth of reflection time that you have when they're gone. I saw one of the, these Instagram videos can crush you if you see it at the wrong moment. I saw one this morning, and it said if you had the chance to spend one day with your oldest child as a toddler, what would you do?
Oh,
what a great question.
what a great question.
The first thing that I thought of is, you immediately go to your insecurities and your challenge. At least I do. I immediately go to, I wouldn't be so quick to tell them all the things they're doing wrong.
Oh, no.
We'd go to the park.
That's
We'd go
what
to
I
the
said.
beach.
I was thinking park.
Right.
Yeah, for
park,
sure.
beach. We'd grab, I remember picking them up from school and going to Chick-fil-A and them getting a milkshake bigger than their heads.
Yes.
Back when they were real milk, I think. I don't know that they're real milk anymore, but and the first kicking the soccer ball, like they'd kick a ball with me for hours, and we never had hours.
Mm-mm.
So you have these moments as a parent where, and in life, where when you become reflective and you look back, you can create a better story going forward.
Mm-hmm.
You learn from it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You learn from it. You grow from it. I love what you said about being better yourself. Your kids are learning, they're making their own relationships, they come back, but then our job does not stop on ourselves. We have to keep growing. We have to keep doing. So when they say, if they ever say, how about you, Mom? How about you, Dad? How are you doing? You have something to respond with.
Do they ever say that?
I don't know. I haven't
We
gotten
have
it yet.
boys.
I have all boys.
You have 3 boys. I have 2 boys, and they very rarely ask us how
Yeah,
we're
they
doing.
don't. My third one might. We'll see. Who knows?
I feel like you have something that you bond with each of them over. They all have something unique.
Yeah.
And I think there's some really great conversations. I just spent the weekend with my oldest son, Carson, and he flew out to Scottsdale to go to the Genius Youth event that I'm a part of, Genius Network and this group, and it's a great entrepreneurs. And he came back and he told me about this adversity story, that he had seen this young man who had a football injury after not starting, finally getting the start, and then getting paralyzed for like 2 to 3 weeks, and then having to learn how to rewalk again, and all these things. And it's just such a perspective, but you're seeing it through his eyes. And my son's telling me this, and all of a sudden, any challenges they have are mitigated, and you're surrounding them with all these big thinkers.
Yeah.
Things that I wish that I were surrounded with when I was younger. Like, just imagine if we were surrounded by people that thought more like us.
Yeah. Or helped you think on a bigger plane. Yeah. That early? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you are a representation of the circle that you're a part of.
Yeah.
And if your circle stays small, you stay small.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are meant for something greater, that can be a really big challenge. And then you start to take it out on the wrong people.
Yeah.
So I think helping them find that network is really helpful. But it's interesting because we had these conversations where they're growing up and they're having this depth where they are curious about a little bit more about what you did or how you did it, or it's minimal.
Minimal, right. There is
Minimal.
hope. There is hope is what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't get that.
They don't
right
quite
now,
like
but-
relationship advice.
No. Oh, no.
I love to give that.
I know you do.
Yeah.
One day they'll listen. It might be like 5 or 6
I don't
years from
know.
now, but
I don't
you
know.
never know.
I love my dad, but I don't listen to my dad's relationship advice very often. But I do find great comfort now in a Sunday afternoon conversation about challenges in a marriage where your dad gets it because your mom. And you see things in your wife that are just like your mom, and they're great traits or strengths, but turned up too loud, they can be blind spots, just like all of us have. But then you look at your dad and you're like, do you remember this ever happening? He's like, let me tell you. And now you have something that's completely different that you're sharing that you've never shared before. And maybe some of you might share that stuff all the time. I do not share very often like that.
I'm not
I'll
saying
share more
anything.
here than I would at home, like in that environment.
I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm just kidding.
Well, middle age is a unique timeline for all partners and all relationships. So
Very true.
we have a lot more conversations about perimenopause, about the uniqueness of the bell curve of life, and let's just say we go through things at different times, and it becomes very interesting when you can share some of those interesting dynamics.
A sense of humor is really critical, honestly, right? It is so important now and going forward, right? So important.
Well, I think you have to have a sense of humor. You've been married how many years?
25 years.
Anything big you're going to do for 25?
It was last year.
Oh, you just hit it.
Wasn't
Okay.
Yeah, we just hit it. Yeah. Yeah. Did we do anything crazy? No, I don't know if we did anything crazy. It might be this year that we do something abroad, somewhere more fun. Yeah.
When you think about that, what stands out to you as something that is like a bucket list thing that you've kind of always wanted to do? Is there anything that comes to mind, or do you feel like you do most of those things?
I mean, we do. We moved cross country.
Right. That's an adventure.
That was an adventure, that's for sure. We did say we wanted a little bit more adventure. I'm not sure that that's what we initially were thinking we would do, but we've had some really fun adventures actually out there, and probably a little bit more travel, maybe. But because we live so far from home, where our kids are, some of that is just being closer to them. Is now we're really focusing on spending a little bit more time when we can, just physically closer to them.
Right.
And I think we're just a lot more grateful for the time that we have together.
It goes back to that reflection time, right? You just
Absolutely.
have that calm. It's sort of like the older we get, the more peace I find when I go to Sunday Mass.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's this calm and peace of just being quiet for that hour and thinking at such a higher level than what you were able to do when the kids were younger. And it was so distracting, and there's so much going on.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're kind of there alone, or we're there with our spouse, or it's a unique perspective, and you're sitting in somewhere where you're thinking about all those things. You're thinking about who's not there. You're thinking about how you can't wait to be with the whole family, and all those things. Then you go do it, and you feel good about it.
Yeah. It's a different life. It is a different life now as an empty nester, right? Than it was even just like 2 years ago when you had one of them at home. It's just a whole different life. And one you have to make an adjustment to. And I know, I mean, it's going to be an adjustment for us as it was for you. It was tough.
It's really funny because I don't think I understood how emotional it was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I feel like my dad's, and maybe I'm shallow to think that my dad and fathers at my stage 25, 30 years ago. I'm getting ready to have my 30th high school reunion this in a couple weeks.
Oh.
So 30 years ago now, were of the same, but I kind of feel like it was slightly different because the way that the world changed is, you know, so many men and women today have a unique equal partnership.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit of it's a, you're doing more of the things that my dad was not doing all those things. He wasn't changing diapers every day. He wasn't getting up with the kids in the mornings and doing the morning routine.
Making lunches.
Yeah, I mean, I never did that. Adrian did that every time, thank God. And but I did get them ready every morning. I was texting with my brother the other day, and he has two kids under 2. And I said, you know, I was thinking every time I have a little thing I remember, I try to send it to him. And I'm like, you know, I was thinking about my morning routines, and the topic was kind of the breaking the generational curse. Okay, and I was watching an interview that Des Bryant had done, and he was talking and he was reading something that he kept on his phone to constantly remember that he was breaking the generational curse. And it was all about how he would tell himself to remember that when you say goodnight to your kids, you know, make sure it's calm and collected and loving and not aggressive, because that's the last thing they think about. So if you're yelling at them before they go to bed, it's not a good thing. Or when they wake up in the morning, if it's chaos and they start every day in chaos. Yeah. And it's funny because you become a parent and you start to see things that you didn't really recognize when you were growing up, and we're super judgmental. And we're super judgy on our parents, right? And they did the best that they could, and I'm grateful.
I think about that a lot. Yes.
My mom was a lot of chaos in the morning. She was also making me crepes, not pancakes. I didn't like pancakes, folks. I like crepes.
So
they
she
had
made
to
them
be
for you?
thin. And so she would make crepes, and the way I liked them in the morning. And she would make my sister eggs, I mean, it was ridiculous. But we were also rushing a lot. Mm-hmm. And it was coming from love. It was coming from her love language, acts of service. Yeah. But that rushing was something that, what does it do when you feel uneasy is you're quick-tempered, someone's speeding. I can remember my mom getting pulled over. You listen to this, Mom, so I know you remember the fake machine gun in the back that the cop goes, "What's in the back?" And it was like an Uzi, like one of those fake kid guns.
Yeah, a plastic.
And my mom literally like grabs it and she's like, "This kid's gun?" And she starts like just moving it. I mean, she was so frustrated. And I remember the cop going, "Bam, please put the fake gun down." Nowadays, that's not as funny.
I don't know if that would.
That's not as funny, but it was really funny then. This was 1980 something.
Yeah.
So, but I was watching that interview. I'm thinking back to my childhood, and then I'm thinking back to my kids. And my youngest son loved to get dressed and then change his outfits like 37 times. And it was starting to become something that was creating chaos in the morning. Yeah. And so I made them set an alarm. He was 3 and Carson was 6. I made them set alarms. They were not allowed to come downstairs until they were completely done, hair combed, clothes on, everything but their shoes had to be on. And then if we had time, we did breakfast. But if they took too long and they didn't get breakfast, that's on them. Like I had this strict mentality. That's very
regimented.
But guess what happened? They were always ready. Yeah. They got up to an alarm every day. Maybe it took a week or two, but I would just go up there and I would say, hey, you know the rule.
Yeah.
Don't come downstairs. They'd come down and they get on their iPad or whatever. I say, nope, put the iPad down, go back upstairs, get ready, come back down. And what I remember most about driving to school is playlist of songs, singing on the way there. I remember having time, getting to the bus stop early, things that were very unique.
Yeah.
And without the perspective of seeing that and then breaking that. And then so I text my brother and I said, that morning routine, start as early as you can because it'll be all they know. Yeah. And then the second thing was laying with the kids at night. Adrienne gets tired very, very early. She's a teacher. She got up early, but she likes an early bedtime. And she was not at her best after 7 p.m. And I am great. I'm good. That's my
You're a night
everything
owl.
is. It's not so much I'm a night owl, but I definitely feel relieved. Like the day was over. Like I felt like my stress was done. I was much better of a human most of the time around that time. And so I would go, and I remember I didn't want my dad to lay with me when I was a kid, but I always wanted my mom to come in and be like, hey, come hang out and let me tell you. Yeah, let me tell me about the day. Or, I would always want to talk right when we go to bed. A lot of kids do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And there wasn't a lot of that time that I remember. And so I thought, okay, I'll start doing that with my boys. And Adrienne was always like, you go to bed. It's time to go to bed. Like there had to be strict bedtimes. She was as strict at night as I was in the morning, and which I respect. It was great teamwork. But I overrode her all the time at night and would be like, I'm going to go lay with them. And we'd stay up talking for like an hour. And it was great. And one night I recorded it. And it was such a great conversation.
I'm so glad you did that.
Yeah.
You'll have that forever.
I love it. The point I'm getting at is I text my brother and I said, morning routine, evening routine. Two things that changed the cycle of how I grew up and how they grew up. And it allowed me to build off of the things I loved my parents did and adjust on some things that I felt we needed to adjust on, with respect, of course, to them doing the best that they could.
And you make it your own. So let me ask you, it feels more chaotic these days, does it not? It feels like next level running around. Do you feel that? And do people feel that? And what do you say is the answer to that? Is it in a framework? Is it in your life model? Is it something that we can find a solution to as we have this discussion?
I think the first thing you have to get comfortable with is how you're made. So I'm made to be pretty busy. So I'm just always, I say yes a lot. You made this joke earlier. I said yes, and I take on a lot. I want to do a lot. I want to be a part of a lot of things. I enjoy that energy. I'm high energy. But understanding that I'm high energy, I've learned a couple of things. Number one, I actually try to separate and have alone time today a lot more now for quiet time, for relaxation, for reset, for realignment, for thinking time. And I wasn't very good at that for a lot of years. I would allot the times, like at the end of the year, I would allot 3 days, and one day I would define everything I felt accomplished about, so I could feel good about the year, and then I would look at I'd build out the life model going into next year. Where do I want to put my time? Where do I want to put my energy? And I would build on that, but I wasn't doing it enough. I don't know that it's any more chaotic. I think that the one thing that's a little more challenging is the phone and the ability to work and be productive everywhere you go is, like anything else, a great advantage, but it also can be a disadvantage. And so I actually believe analog is where we're heading. So, you hear this a little bit now, but I told you I sat across from that 27-year-old kid at the table, and he's an adult young man. But he was like, "Yeah, I don't do social media. I have it on my computer, but I don't put it on my phone, and I've cut all of it out." And you know, I think we're going to see a movement towards what has taken over our lives to a point where now you're learning to separate and fast from the internet. I have a good buddy, Elko DeBoer, and he has a book out about. I'll put it in the show notes, but it's an internet fast, and it's basically how you, if you want to get ahead, you've got to cut out the chaos. To your question, is self-inflicted. So, and I'm just as guilty as others. I get caught in the.
It's hard not to. I mean, it truthfully is not. It's hard to stay away from it. But I think to your point, also recognizing it and cutting it off. I think that is something to really think about. That's what I get from our conversations is different things to think about as we're going through kind of similar paths.
I think when I look at the life tool, okay, and I look at how I used to build it out, I started to recognize the trend that I was a sprinter, and I always knew this, and we've talked about this before, but this was something that really stood out to me when I started to recognize not only who I am and why I do what I do and how I can be authentic, but how I actually work, like how I actually show up. And I started to pay attention to that. I realized that, man, I can get a lot done if I build in breaks. I need breathing room. I do not do good when I have to go and go and go and go. I need to sprint, rest, sprint,
in one day,
rest. Now, the older I get, the more and more I do it even more in a day.
Okay.
So, my day, Renee builds my days out to be sprints.
Gotcha.
If it becomes an endurance, then all I do is complain. Literally, if it becomes like back to back to back to back to back, and sometimes it does, I will genuinely be like, why are we doing this?
Mm-hmm.
This is not how I'm going to be at my best. And she doesn't, she cracks up at me normally. She definitely cracks up at me. But she also tries to protect that and help me. And I need someone to help me because I will say yes over and over and over again.
Yeah. Okay, wait. Give me your day. So show me the calendar. So not like 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11. Like what is the running and what is the thinking?
So a sprint. Let's do a perfect day.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect.
So I love this exercise too, by the way. Okay. I'm going to tell you what an average day looks like, but I'll also tell you what a perfect day looks like.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not always the same. No. So an average day, I'm going to wake up. I'm going to have a cup of coffee. Lately, we've been having celery juice, thanks to my wife and the Realign movement, which is accompanied with all of the stuff we do in energy and health and fitness, and she's really dedicating a lot of time and energy into that, and that's something we're growing together.
Cool.
But we do celery juice first now on an empty stomach, and then I wait a little while to have my coffee, but I'll have the coffee. There's a little hesitation. I prefer the coffee first, but that's a different story. And I usually read or listen to my Hallow app. And so I listen to scripture. I find that I listen more than I read because I like to just zone and think. And when I'm reading, I'm thinking a little less. So I will do both, but the morning is my reading or thinking time for probably 30 minutes, okay? And I do somewhere around 10 to 20 minutes of that, and then I might jot down a couple things I want to get done, write a couple notes, whatever, but it's usually that. Then I'll go work out, and I'll get my workout in. It's probably somewhere around 20 minutes on the short end, 45 minutes to an hour on the long end. And then I'll do the sauna and the cold plunge, depending upon which order, what the workout was. Was I lifting heavy weights? I'll do the cold first. Was I lifting light? I'll do the cold after. I have a little mechanism of which I do it. It may or may not make sense. I'm sure Huberman could tell me I'm wrong, but whatever it is, I have my thinking time in my sauna is also not work. It is more spiritual time. So I usually pray, or meditate inside of that. And meditation from prayer is just to me a higher level of meditation. So, and then I start my day, and I usually have the first thing around 9. If it's live, it's going to be 10. So that way I have time to build in maybe a Zoom on the front end or whatever it may be. And then I'll go right to lunch, but I'm going to take a break between 12 and 1 or between 12:30 and 1:30. There's got to be an hour block where I've prioritized food and if I can, a 20-minute nap.
That's new.
Yeah, I've been
Isn't
doing
it?
it for many, many years, but I went a lot of years without getting it in.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten it in a lot lately, but I try. I learned how to do this 20 years ago, probably a 25-minute power nap, and I almost don't need to set an alarm. I do just because of priorities, but I can lay down and I wake up and it's great. And then I'll sprint hard from like 1 to 5, 1 to 6. I'll have a break in between, but I can, as long as I have bathroom breaks or a quick coffee break, I'm pretty good. Afternoon, I kind of hit my stride. That 1 to 5, 1 to 6, whatever. I don't ever rush away from what I'm doing. So I don't do anything I don't love. Okay. And then make a long story short, I would then come home, eat dinner with my wife, and, maybe we read, watch a show, and go to bed, 9:30.
Yeah.
A perfect day, I wake up, I have nothing on the schedule. A perfect day, I wake up, I have nothing on the schedule. I don't have to dress a certain way. I don't have to shave. I go for a walk on the beach. I work out as well.
Yeah.
I'm in the sauna, I'm in the cold plunge, still same things. I had that great cup of coffee, maybe celery juice if my wife insists.
First. Yeah.
And I might meet a friend for lunch, somebody that's a deep thinker, somebody that wants to actually talk about life, not the weather. And then the afternoon, I have a nap, a 25-minute nap. I have a cup of coffee when I wake up from that nap. I get to read, and maybe I have a dinner with some friends or with Adrian or whatever. I mean, that's a perfect day.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of, the beach was included. Like I love that. And so I like slower days, even though I'm very, very sprinty and fast. What about you? I'm interested. What is a perfect day to you?
I love starting the day out with a workout. And where I live now is very walkable. So I don't have to get into a car. Like some weeks I don't have to drive, which is actually amazing.
It's relieving. It's a relief, isn't it?
It is amazing. And when you live, I know you live at the oceanfront sometimes, and you can walk to meals. You can walk anywhere.
After meals.
Walk after
the
meals.
value after meals is something you don't even
So
realize
good.
how great it is.
So we have started to do that. We are in a very walkable location, and I will walk to a workout, sauna, cold plunge. I don't do the cold plunge, but I'll do the sauna. And then I'll walk back home and do work between, 3 or 4 hours. And then everybody comes home. I mean, it's very simple, very, very simple. And a perfect day would be just walking into our downtown area, working out, and just sort of staying there, meeting with friends.
Oh, like hanging out in that one section. Yeah, not having anywhere you have to be.
Not having, and that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, but
just like yours doesn't, but at least you recognize that it can happen.
I think, look, the reason I like having this conversation is I don't think people spend enough time planning out their perfect day. Yeah. It's there's a video I saw years ago. It was this funny thing where the boyfriend or fiance or whatever says all of her favorite things. Like we're gonna go here and then we're gonna go there and we're gonna do. She's like, "Are you kidding? Are you what?" We're gonna get, and they're like super excited. And then they started to do parodies of it where the guy's talking to his buddy and he's telling his friend, "Hey, yeah, let's catch up." And he's saying he's gonna do all of her favorite things while she listens in the background. It's hilarious to me.
Gosh.
And but I don't think people spend enough time thinking about this. And when you're thinking of your life and the model of life, you also have to think about how you weave that into your life. Like it's one thing to write stuff down. It's another thing to never do it. How do you do it? is there one thing that you really want to do with your kids before they're out of the house? You know, your youngest is still in the house. Is there anything that you want to do with him before he's gone that you would have done with the other two?
Yeah.
Have you ever thought of that at all?
No, but we do a lot with him. I mean, he's
He has
almost
one-on-one time, and
yeah.
no
I
one else
mean,
got that.
he doesn't really want all that much one-on-one time anymore. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we get to do a lot with him. He definitely has the ability to travel more than the others that we were able to do with him
Right.
with the others. But it's something I think, as you mention it, is something you need to think about because once they're out of the house, you have time. And if you have the ability to figure it out while they're around you, then it becomes a little more seamless to just sort of be another day.
Well, you're talking about something that I have believed in my whole life, and that is building the next chapter while in the current chapter.
And I would not have called it that, except, well, I know you, but yes. And I'm so glad either we've talked about it
Yeah.
before or something, but it made me think about it, or it's making me think about it now. And we're doing it as much as we can.
I don't know many people that do that. I think most
It's hard.
people want to have these hard starts and stops. They're like, I'm going to quit my job and start something new.
Yeah.
And it's not awful if you don't have to quit your job and what you want to start new is a hobby or something that you enjoy. Or, you know, there's so many ways to dabble and try and create
Yes.
hobbies that are really interesting for you.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that was really cool is I remember the first couple months when the kids were both out, and Adrian and I would wake up and we go through our morning routine. She started working out at the same time as me, which in the first couple weeks, to be honest, was like, I'm like, why are you in my space? Like I had to like start sharing things. I did. Are you going to use those weights? I'm like, what? Yeah, I was, but it was like 5 steps from now, and that's that's the selfish morning routine that you have. And here's the thing: a couple weeks later, we find a routine, and now we have a spot, and then we work out in that spot, and then we rotate, and then she goes into the sauna, then I overlap in the sauna, then she gets out of the sauna, and we have this whole routine. And when we started the remodel and we moved out of our house and we had that routine, I realized how much I enjoyed that. So the other thing that I think is really cool is that we get the chance to try things.
Mm-hmm.
But if you plan for it, sometimes it's really cool. Other times the things you didn't plan for are actually the stuff that you enjoy doing the most.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just filling your time with watching a bunch of shows, which
Yes.
is also something that you can do and you can find enjoyment out of it.
Yeah.
We've recently watched Alone, where they get
Where they
stranded and they get
dropped.
dropped it in like the Arctic, and we watched like one version of that, and we're the slowest people to ever watch a series. We are. We don't watch it without each other, and then we're not always together. So it's
Right.
like, hey, where do we leave off? We're on like episode 12,
And it's been like a year, right?
oh my
You're not
gosh.
binging, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm not a good binger at all, but you do. It creates conversation, and it's okay to do as well. It's just I don't want my whole life with my wife at the end of our last couple chapters or the next 50 years, whatever it may be, to be just watching TV.
Yeah. I don't see that for you because you're actively looking for things, the travel, the connections with other people, the working out, the building businesses, right? All of these things are part of the things that you're building. And it's part of the things I know that as you talk about it, whoever's listening can get that as well. And that's what I've gotten from our conversations. I'll talk to my husband after we have our talks, and he's like, "Did you talk to Scott today?" Because he can tell we've looked at new things. We've talked about things that we can do that are different than what we had done before. It's always good. It's always good to have someone to help you stretch your thinking.
I love it. I think it's great because having these conversations, it goes both ways. People ask me all the time, what is your hobby?
Mm.
And this podcast is something I love doing. And it's because I have these great conversations with people, and I've always loved communicating. I've always loved talking with people and learning from them. And I have so many amazing people on the show,
Yeah.
and we get to learn different things. And then sometimes I'll get off the show and someone will text me and they'll be like, dude, I got to stay in touch with you. That was awesome. I haven't thought about that in forever. Or I'll text them and be like, that was the greatest point. Thank you for making that. Made me think in a completely different scenario than I was thinking before. And I actually think when you brought up chaos, where my brain initially went was the inability for people to be curious now.
Mm.
And that bothers me. Like, I get people on this show and we don't always agree on everything, but the curiosity will kill most of the hatred, frustration, negativity, because you learn someone's story, you learn their background, you learn what matters to them, why it matters to them.
Yeah. It's all about the whys. Why? Why are you doing it? Why? And if the other person is willing to share that why, then there is an ability to kind of move to that next level of relationship, right?
So, I was in Scottsdale and I went to that Genius event that I go to, and one of the speakers was talking about the curiosity of a child. He had built these daycare centers or something that he built this business. It was selling the business, and he was giving a perspective of all the things the kids taught him. And it was a really interesting dynamic how we can become childlike again. And as we age, we all become a little more and more childlike. Just look at the lines at a restaurant and the impatience. But the reality is thinking through the eyes of a child. Like, when you first got to a sandbox and you were like 3 or 4 years old, what was that like? It was this situation where you'd never seen it. You had to ask someone, hey, are you playing with this? You want to build something? And you just saw someone close to your age and you were like, let's go. We got to meet them.
Yeah.
Well, at least I did. I mean,
Yeah,
some of you
let's
introverts
try.
might not be like that, but I was like, oh, we got to meet this guy. He looks just like me. He's a kid.
We're going to be friends.
And you were curious. You didn't know where they came from. You didn't know what their socioeconomics were. You didn't know what their politics were. But you know how you got to know them? You asked questions. And you ask lots of questions. And then you walk with your parents and you kept asking why.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it so dark outside? Why is this like that curiosity is something that the more we remember as adults, the more open-minded and I think happier we become in a lot of ways. And so I don't know, it was interesting. I like those. That's something else I wrote in my notes. These are little things I write down that I want to explore with other people.
Yeah.
So I'll bring up the topic and then we can talk through it. And it's super interesting to me.
This is your show. And normally you get to answer all of the questions, but you're allowing me to ask you some of them. So thank you for allowing that. What do you want someone who is listening or watching, what do you want them to take away from this? Normally, again, you're the one asking your guests all of these questions, but now we're turning the mic on to you and asking you to sort of think about what is the takeaway for someone who gets the chance to hear.
I want whatever they're listening to. I usually just want them to find one piece of value out of that conversation that's going to help them, get through a tough situation. Maybe lean in just a little bit into their marriage to make something work that they're struggling with, because everybody's relationships has challenges. Talking about overwhelm and life, looking at how to actually execute upon a model like that so that you can be the best version of yourself. Like, most people have more in themselves to give. And I think what this show does is it helps people think about that. People, when you're, I managed money for 20 plus years. I had lots of my clients that I was with for a number of years, and they pass on. And it's one of the toughest things that nobody talks about in that industry, because you lose friends and you got to know them at the end when they are the most interested in everything that you're doing. They are extremely interesting. Like, their lives have been amazing. And then they have all these family dynamics. Some of them are great. Some of the kids are awful and you feel sorry for them. But for the most part, they're never upset about anything except the things they didn't do that they wanted to do, those regrets. The regrets aren't usually um, they're not usually big things. They're little things. There,
Like what?
I used to ask. Well, I used to ask clients, and I used to ask people in general when I interviewed them. But I would, in a in a in a deep dive, I would say, listen, I'm just curious. When you were a kid, what did you want to be? Sure. What did you want to be when
Oh,
you? I'm
uh,
interested. That I'm going to
yeah.
ask you now,
Oh,
just for
yeah.
just
Sure,
for
sure,
this
sure.
point.
I I wanted to be a business owner, and I don't know exactly what kind of business I was going to
What
have.
did you play? Like when you were a kid, did you play a certain type of business or?
No, but I remember thinking I wanted to be a business owner, but I really also wanted to be a teacher. So there were different times, right? I think I was younger when I wanted to be a teacher, and then a little older, but not much older, when I wanted to be a business owner. But those two things together, that's all I remember.
That's interesting. So you
Uh,
wanted to teach people. You wanted to be a
I
leader and
I guess, and I guess when I think business owner, I guess I kept thinking of like a big gray building, like being on top of the big gray
yeah.
building. I don't know. I guess I was very young, but just those two things. That's
But
what
you
I
know, when
wanted.
you go back to a place when you're a child like
Hmm.
that and you start thinking about and if you're listening to this right now, think about what you wanted to be when you grew up.
Yeah.
And I remember kind of two defining points. I remember um, we went to mass every Saturday night, and I wanted to be the priest bad when I was young. And then as I got older, I wanted to be in the FBI. Like that was
Oh
the
wow.
dream. I majored in criminal justice.
Yeah.
That was the direction I was going in, and my interest in that was always great. But I asked this one client one time. I've asked lots of them, but I asked this one lady one time, and she said, "Oh, I always wanted to be a ballerina." And I loved the ballet. And her husband was sitting there, and he was like, we've never gone to the ballet. I didn't even know you liked the ballet." She's like, "Yeah, I danced all through grade school. I loved it." And she was lighting up. I mean, there was this glow in the conversation, and she
Yeah.
was probably in her late 70s, maybe early, probably late 70s. And her husband looks at her and he's like, "Well, if you like the ballet, we could go to a ballet. I'll go to a ballet with you." By the way, probably would not have gone to a ballet with her for the first like 30 years, like most of us. Like if
Yeah.
my wife 20 years ago was like, "You want to go to ballet?" I'm like, "No."
No,
I mean,
thank
right
you.
now I would say no, probably, just to be honest with you. But if that was her dream and I saw her
Yeah.
in the way that this lady was sharing the story, the way you light up when you share a story and you share how ridiculous some of the things are, like the gray building,
Yeah.
nothing ridiculous about it, but it was just like an experience that you thought about. I remember my sister wanting to be a teacher from the day she played classroom all the time.
Oh.
And so these are some of the things that you look back on,
Yeah.
and we don't often do the things that we dreamed of doing,
Very
but there
true.
are parts of it that we can go back to. And I think having conversations here with the depth that we do,
Hmm.
if it helps you, maybe we're talking about health and maybe it gets you to a healthier version of yourself so you can go hiking or you can go, doing more active things you always wanted to do because you learned about it. Maybe it's relationship driven and you can't figure out how to get your spouse on the same page and you're super frustrated,
Yeah.
but you learned about attachment styles and now you understand what the differences are between who you are and who your spouse may be and maybe how to better communicate with them. Like there's so many things that we can learn. um, Most importantly, I tell every guest on this show when we start it, I want you to think of this show as the two of us on a car ride and we're riding in the front seat. And the people in the back, it's like a minivan, and it's not a cool car. I'm sorry, but it's a minivan because it's lots of seats. It can be a Suburban if you want it to be. But right behind me are four people, and what our conversation, as it's happening, is so great that nobody wants to stop us. They want to keep listening. They want to keep it going. And it could be you talking to me talking to you. It could
Yeah.
be us just going back and forth. It's just a conversation. Whatever's important to you is important to me.
And you're along for the ride to
That's it.
hear whatever you want to hear. And I love when you have a conversation like this, and you've been part of this. Maybe you've been with friends and you hear something, you're maybe part of the conversation, maybe you're on the periphery, but you never know what part of whatever somebody is saying is what will stick with you. Maybe it's the fact that your perfect day is your perfect day, as you described it earlier, or the day that you have typically also sounds pretty cool. So maybe somebody models it in that way after yours. You never know.
100%. I think that what's happening as I get older is I'm shaping all of my days to be as close to that perfect day as I possibly can.
Yeah.
So I have less and less of the days that frustrate you, or the days that you feel like you've lost all your time,
Yeah.
or whatever. I think I'm moving towards that more and more, and that's very empowering, and it also makes you feel like you've done something. It's so simple. The other thing is, most of the things that I find in a perfect day don't require a whole lot of money. They're time with friends. They might be dinner with family. They're date night with my wife. They're walking on the beach. It's basic stuff. And most people will find that the things they love doing don't usually require a lot more than they already have right now.
No, it's time, right? So maybe it means putting down the phone, and I'm talking to myself here, putting down the phone, maybe taking that 25-minute power nap,
Right.
and feeling more
powerful.
refreshed after. I did used to do that. When I did the morning show, I actually did power naps when I would come home, but only 20 minutes, because anything over and I couldn't sleep for after that. But
I read an article in Men's Health back before that you got all your information from your phone, and I was probably like 24, 25, and I read an article, and it said that 20 minutes would get you up to 2 hours of added productivity in the day, and you would feel so much better. And then everything after 20 minutes would start to decrease from 2 hours down. And then if you dipped into REM and you went deep, you could sometimes set yourself back.
yeah.
And the article went through all this stuff, and the article said, I'm so bad at this, I never could nap. I was a kid that couldn't nap. I couldn't calm down.
Oh, no.
So I didn't want to nap. So I remember saying, I'll never be able to do this. And the end of the article says, if you're the kind of person that says you could never do this, start with 25 minutes of quiet time. Set your alarm for 25 minutes and just lay there. And for the first 2 months, I did it. I tried it 3 to 4 times a week, and I just laid there. And it calmed my brain. It reset me. It got me more organized. And then I started to fall asleep for 8 minutes or 10 minutes. And today I put on classical music because it
Well, now it's a Pavlov dog kind of thing, right?
yeah.
Like
So I put the music on. I also so I don't have to hear things around me, because very seldom is it super quiet, and I don't care where I am. I can take a 20-minute power nap. Usually I'm asleep. I wake up. I set my alarm. Less than a minute will be on my alarm when I wake up. I'll look at it. I turn it off. I get a cup of coffee or a espresso. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
So it's a great way to kind of recap. But finding the way that your life, whether it be through setting up the life model and knowing who you love, what you want to do in your life, that's a bigger impact, why you're doing it, and how you're doing it within that faithful, putting your ego second and something bigger than yourself. For me, it's God. And then last is energy, how you're showing up, whether you're doing that or you're just trying to live more aligned in the life that you want. I think that's a great way to be.
Agreed.
I think that was a great show.
That was a great
It was
show.
great. As usual, it's great having a conversation with you. What the audience just saw was what you do all the time we were doing videos. So Cheryl went into her natural form of interviewing, but her curiosity really pulls out some great stuff, and I'm grateful to have been able to share that conversation. And I'm glad that the audience can see someone who's been behind the scenes with me for right around a decade now.
I cannot believe it has been a decade. The other day, so you know how phones know everything, right? And I've told you this before. I have so many pictures and videos of you in my phone.
Oh, yeah.
And my husband knows this.
Yeah.
Because we used to record on my phone, honestly. We don't do that anymore. But your picture will come up, and it came up a month ago. Here's Scott.
Yeah, like the anniversary,
Anniversary
the
of
anniversary
Friends or
reminder.
whatever.
Yeah, here's a video, and it's just my outtakes of videos.
It was you.
Yeah.
It was definitely you. And
That's
I was
hilarious.
like, huh. And then, my kids, and I'm like, well, there you go. That's what my
I've
phone
become
thinks.
intertwined
In
as a part of your life and
my
your
life.
family's life, and I'm very, very grateful.
It's been definitely a fun adventure.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining me. This was awesome, and I hope the audience had a great time today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
So YouTube has this cool feature where they pick the next video for you, and it's right here on this screen. So I hope you enjoy this next video.